to tell you the hardest thing about parenting outside of parenting styles every day for a month is coming up with things to say. Because the exercise itself is actually not that hard. I thought it was going to be hard, but it's actually making me so much more attuned to how I'm parenting and how I want to be parenting. I talked in an earlier video about how we were having problems at bedtime with Branham saying that she was hungry. She doesn't want to eat dinner, and then at bedtime she's just stalling for bed because she's hungry. And I got a really great comment from someone who said, what if you tell her you can have 5 minutes to eat before bed, or you can have 6 minutes to eat before bed, and let her choose? And I was like, that's a great idea. The problem with this is that she's 3 years old and she doesn't understand the difference between 5 and 6 minutes. And that's the issue with timers in general. She asks for timers, but she doesn't know what they actually mean in terms of time. So last night, she didn't eat much. She didn't say at bedtime that she was hungry. She waited until we were upstairs in bed, had done every other part of bedtime, and she says, Mommy, I'm hungry. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because I had told her when she didn't eat much dinner, hey, you're going to be hungry at bedtime and we're not going to come downstairs and get food. So she was saying, can Daddy bring me a banana? And I was really torn in this moment because I don't ever want to send my child to bed hungry. But I also know that she knows how to play me. I don't want to call it manipulation because she's 3. And I think the reality is probably more that it's just boundary testing. Is Mommy going to let me do this thing and stay up later? But I also don't want her to be hungry. So normally on school nights, I have a very strict bedtime routine and I would leave when the routine is over. So last night I said, Branham, I'm going to do something different tonight. I'm going to stay with you and snuggle you until you fall asleep, as long as you're not talking or playing. If you talk or play, I'm getting up and I'm going downstairs. I'll give you 3 warnings. Then when she said, I want a banana, I said, you're talking and playing. That's warning 1. And then she snuggled up with me and she went to sleep. And it was amazing because I was so worried about whether or not she was truly hungry, but then she fell asleep. And so I knew, okay, she's fine because she's sleeping. If she had been awake, I would have been sitting up there like stressing and watching her on her monitor. Like, is she acting hungry? Should I take her food? So I did in a way give in, but I didn't give in to what she was asking for. And I gave in a way that also felt really good to me because I said, I've been out of town. And so I'm going to snuggle you. But because it's a school night, I have to be very strict about how snuggles work. And that worked. Will it work again the next time I try it? I don't know. Is she going to ask me to stay in her room on the next school night I put her to bed? Almost definitely. Am I going to have to make sure it's clear that that boundary remains? I am. But it was a moment that felt good. I felt like I could pull from pieces of like already said, and I already know because I've thought about it and articulated, I'm not comfortable letting her go to bed hungry, but I also don't know that she's actually hungry. And so I felt really good about that moment. Yes, it's going to cause some problems down the road, and I'm going to have to make it really clear that that was a one night thing and these boundaries remain firm. And there will be other nights where this is put to the test and I have to figure out what to do with it. But nonetheless, it was a moment that felt good to me. So I'd love to know, what would you have done in that moment?